Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another book review on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum, and today we're taking a look at this big green encyclopedia. This is Firearms, developed and manufactured in Southern Africa, 1949 to 2000. And it really is exactly what the title sets out. Unlike most firearms books, which are somewhat specific and limited in scope, this really is an attempt, and I would say a pretty successful one, to cover the entirety of modern arms production in South Africa and Rhodesia. Rhodesia, of course, being now the state of Zimbabwe. And this is not the product of one single person, one researcher. This is, in fact, published by the Pretoria Arms and Ammunition Association, and they had a team of 17 people who spent about 8.5 years putting together this book. They wanted to create a print documented legacy of the firearms manufacture in Southern Africa, South Africa and Rhodesia, and they did a pretty darn admirable job of it. So what exactly does this cover? Well, if we flip open to the table of contents here, this is about 530 pages, and it is divided up by manufacturer. So it starts with Musgrave Firearms, which was primarily a manufacturer of sporting arms, safari rifles, hunting guns, that sort of thing. The next section is by far the largest one, and that is the Lyttelton Engineering Works. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. This was a company that went through a number of phases of ownership and name. What was originally Lyttelton is now Denel Land Systems, and still a major defense corporation in South Africa. You may not recognize the name, but you probably will recognize some of their guns, including the CP1 pistols, which is this very swoopy looking futuristic pistol, the CR21 assault rifle, which is a similarly styled kind of a bullpup twist on the Galil, although you wouldn't know it's a Galil from looking at the outside. Of course, conversions of the Bren gun and the Vickers gun to .308 in South African service, development of the FAL in South Africa, development of the Galil in South Africa. And then, of course, also the SS-77, which is a fairly unknown machine gun for most people, developed and manufactured in South Africa because, of course, it's in the book here. We also then have Truvelo, a company known for making very nice sniper rifles today. Republic Arms, which did a number of mostly handguns. Their RAP series is somewhat known in the United States, but not in detail. And then Milkor, which is another company that is still known today for its rotary grenade launchers. And then a whole list of a couple dozen additional small manufacturers, things including Techno Arms, Neostead, Excalibur Arms, what else? Viper Manufacturing, Thor Engineering, Brewster Industries, Acerma Manufacturing. Those are the guys who did the Striker and the Protecta drum-fed shotguns, or rotary-fed shotguns. Anyway, a whole slew of those guys. And then at the end, a series of about half a dozen different Rhodesian manufacturers. So with each of these companies, what is actually in the book? Well, I would say it is primarily a history of firearm development and production. So there's a little bit of information typically on disassembly and operation of guns, particularly ones that are somewhat unusual in their disassembly and operation. But the bulk of the information, the focus of the book, is really documenting how these designs were developed, who came up with them, what the development process was, where and to what extent they were actually manufactured, and then what their distribution was once manufactured. So this isn't so much about historical use of the guns. There's not going to be, there's a little bit of information about use of things like the FAL, but primarily this is about development and production, which is cool for me. That hits right on something I'm very interested in. And being that this covers South Africa and Rhodesia, of course, those two countries for a large period of the time frame of this book were both subject to UN arms embargoes, and that forced them to develop an innovative and responsive domestic arms industry. So regardless of your thoughts on the politics of those countries at that time, it did create an environment that was very, very beneficial to small arms development and manufacture. There was a lot of motivation and government support for people developing firearms designs and putting them into production. And it really shows here. The guns that are featured in this book really run the gamut, from guns that are still recognized as excellent large-scale production combat arms today, like the FAL, the Galil, like the 20 millimeter anti-material rifles that were developed towards the end of this time frame, all the way through very high-end civilian hunting rifles, and then over into like crude, kind of cobbled together looking submachine gun areas. Some of these guns are very novel and innovative, guns like the Neostead shotgun. Some of them are just complete knockoffs of existing gun designs, things like the Z88 that was such a copy of the Beretta 92 that Beretta sued and won a lawsuit over it. All of this together paints this really interesting picture of South African firearms. And because this was produced, written, researched and written by the Pretoria, basically gun collectors group, they have access to the people who are actually involved, to the records, the documentation, and a wealth of examples of all of the guns in this book in a way that would be totally impossible for anyone trying to write a book like this from outside of South Africa. So in that way, it's a resource that gives us a ton of new information on guns that are very poorly documented anywhere else. For example, the Neostead shotgun. If you try and find information on that, there's just very little outside of a handful of magazine articles that were written in the 90s. This thing is a good example. This is a Heritage Arms Stealth, which is a copy of a South African pistol, and the entire development process is documented here in this book. So I bought it because it was cool and it has this kind of unique gas-delayed system to it. Now, thanks to this book, I can actually find some information on its background and its development. The CP1, the CR21 assault rifle, same sort of thing there. Guns that are novel and recognized and attract a lot of attention, but nobody really seems to know much about them. Well, now you can. So it's a book that I would say any typical reader is probably going to be really interested in about half of it and kind of flipping through past the other half, because it is a book that does cover such a wide variety of types of firearms. However, it's also a book that I think is vastly underpriced for the amount of work that went into it. At the moment, it is available through Bush War Books. There's a link in the description text below if you're interested in getting a copy, which you probably should be. And they have it priced right now at 1,150 Rand, which translates into like 85 bucks US plus shipping. And that's a steal for the amount of information in this book. You could cut the book in half and it would still be a good price, and for most people, I think that's the way they'll look at it is, I'm not interested in this information about Musgrave's hunting rifles, or I'm not interested in this information about crude submachine guns, but I am interested in this or that or the other, and even for those people, this book will be well worth the expenditure. And it's a fantastic effort for the Pretoria Arms and Ammunition Association to have actually documented this and gotten it down on paper before the people involved pass away and a lot of this information gets forgotten. So congratulations to them for putting together a really pretty monumental project like this. I, for one, am thrilled to have a copy of this book. It's a tremendous source of information on guns that just can't find anywhere else. So I suspect that, I think they're in their second printing right now, actually. I suspect it won't be printed forever. A book like this, regardless of the amount of information and work that is in it, is going to have a somewhat niche audience, and once that audience is mostly fulfilled, it's not really economically feasible to continue printing the book. So it probably won't last that long before, like so many technical firearms reference books, it goes out of print and becomes very difficult and expensive to find. So as always, if you're interested, I would strongly recommend buying a copy today. I'm very happy to have mine.